Welcome to Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center. We're a member of Unity Worldwide Ministries, and we're located locally at 350 North Orchard Avenue in Vacaville, California. If you're a first-time viewer or if you're returning to our broadcast, welcome home.
Let us pray. Let us join our minds and hearts. Let us honor our oneness with God and with each other, and let us celebrate our freedom. Let us celebrate the freedom that lives in our hearts, in our minds, the freedom that opens the door for us to be all that we want to be, all that we are called to be. Let us celebrate the freedom that we have in our country. And let us make a commitment in this moment to do all that is ours to do to ensure the freedom of our hearts and the freedom of our dear United States. This or something better. And so it is.
My name is Warren Spaeth, and I'm really glad to be here. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be with you today. I want you right now to just hold in mind a person or persons who are really near and dear to you right now, and then hold in your heart these words for them. You are a beautiful child of God, perfect in every way. You are loved unconditionally, just the way you are. Now we know if it's true for our loved ones, it's also true for us. So please hold this same truth for yourself as we say, I am a beautiful child of God, perfect in every way. I am loved unconditionally, just the way I am. And now I'd just like you to remember that we have prayer chaplains here to serve you. Our prayer chaplains are here to pray with you for any need you might have. If you'd like prayer, please email Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center at unityvv@pacbell.net. Thank you. We are glad that you've joined us today, and we thank you for being here. We thank you for your presence. We thank you for supporting this broadcast. If you'd like to make a donation to Unity of the Valley, please do that, and here are a few ways to do that. Thank you so much.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
And now for some announcements. Unity of Vacaville's YOU, that's the Youth of Unity, are still accepting donations. They're accepting donations of clothing, bedding, and soft goods, handbags, things like that. And this helps them fund their supplies and scholarships and events and outings that they do. So it's very much appreciated. Items can be dropped off through July 7th. If you have questions, please email the office at unityvv@pacbell.net. Also, we are having a fundraiser that benefits the Alzheimer's Association. It's a dine and donate event at Mary's Pizza Shack. And flyers are available by contacting our office at 707-447-0521 or emailing us at unityvv@pacbell.net. Thanks for your support. And very exciting news, save the date, Sunday, August 21st. Karen Drucker, the wonderful Karen Drucker, is going to be our guest speaker and musician at the 10 a.m. service. And there's going to be a concert at 12 o'clock p.m. after the service. Concert tickets are $25, but no one's turned away at that event. So please visit www.karendrucker.com to hear a sample of Karen's music and talks. And contact the office here at Unity 707-447-0521 or by email at unityvv@peckbell.net for more information on that. Now we invite you to take into your minds and into your hearts this powerful truth of our statement of faith. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good.
Welcome again to Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center. My name is Reverend Dalia Adams, and I am honored, very honored to be here with you today. This is the weekend in our country, in the United States, when we celebrate freedom. The freedom that was declared by our forefathers, our founders, the freedom that was declared by the first 13 states of the United States. But even beyond that, the freedom that we experience, both in our country, in our communities, in our hearts. And the Declaration of Independence that was written and signed on July 4th, 1776, says a lot about King George, who was the king at the time, King George III, and all of the ways that he was abusing his power, which made a legitimate reason for a Declaration of Independence to be made. But in the very beginning of the Declaration, some basic beliefs or principles were first embraced. The Declaration begins with, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Those are strong words, and I think we have much to be proud of in the United States. This is more of a statement of a goal or an ideal that we've been working toward over the course of our country's history. Sometimes it's been 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. Sometimes it's been inching forward, sometimes it's been a sliding back. But overall, this ideal has led our country or guided it to make changes. And yes, there have been many things that have been wrong along the way. But these ideals are so precious, and the fact that it is our intention and our commitment to embrace them says a lot about our country and a lot about what we have to celebrate on this July 4th. Not everyone in the world has these rights. I know from my personal history, my parents were refugees from the communist regime in Russia. And I know that relatives of mine were not free to write letters. Teachers were not free to teach the truth they knew. Artists were not free to make art. Writers were not free to write. And this is a history that I heard about growing up, and it is a history that is in place today in very many countries. We have journalists who are free to write what they see, what they learn, what they discover. They don't always agree, but there is a freedom of the press that is so precious, because what we know, what we learn helps guide us in creating this ideal in our country, in our lives. This statement continues with that to secure these rights, this is in the Declaration of Independence, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So as we celebrate the 4th of July, our freedom in the United States, we have to remember that there is an obligation, a responsibility that comes with the freedoms we've been given. Because these freedoms come from us. They come from the consent of the governed. So that means it is on us to be involved. It is on us to vote, whatever we may believe, whatever position we hold. The freedom of our country depends on the consent of the governed. So people who sit back and say, oh, it doesn't make any difference, are not aligning with the intention of this declaration, are not aligning with the principles of a democratic republic, if you will. So it's important as we celebrate the 4th of July and acknowledge that one very powerful way that we have freedom today is through the government that we consent to, that we vote for, that we support in our civic activities. If we sit back and stop offering our consent, if we sit back and fail to take a stand and say, this is the way I want my government to govern, then we are relinquishing a very important power. For we will learn as we continue that freedom is an amazing, amazing gift. It makes all of the difference in the world as far as the quality of our lives, but it is never on automatic pilot. Freedom is always earned. Freedom is always secured, whether it's the freedom we feel within us or the freedom that we experience in our communities and in our country. Freedom means freedom from. These are the things that are pushed away. These are the things that are denied. Freedom is freedom from tyranny. Again, there are places where some of the things that we take for granted as far as our freedoms just don't exist. So it's freedom from tyranny, from oppression, from social injustice, freedom from imprisonment, freedom from abuse, freedom from poverty, Poverty severe enough can hold people down in very powerful and destructive ways. Freedom means freedom from disease or freedom from a pandemic. We've all experienced what it's like when a pandemic is raging and we don't know what to do about it. We don't have medications or vaccines for it. It takes over, and our freedom to be with each other, our freedom to work, our freedom to move around is cut off. So as we celebrate our freedom, let us recognize what it is we are free from, and let us be grateful. Let us be grateful, and maybe let us also make a commitment to make sure that we remain free from tyranny, that we reduce the social injustice so that more and more people can experience that freedom. And on each of these points, the freedom from poverty, often there are things that we can do, changes we can make. So it's an ongoing commitment, it's an ongoing work, and it's an ongoing gift that we give to ourselves. We've been talking about the freedom we have in society, but the freedom within us is equally important, if not even more important, than the freedom we get from our environment, from our government, from our communities. The freedom within us is what determines the freedom that we experience, because we can be living in a free society, and if we're not free from within, we do not enjoy the freedom that is ours. Nelson Mandela, who was imprisoned for 27 years before he was released from prison, said, "As I walked through the door toward my freedom, I knew that if I did not leave anger, hatred, and bitterness behind, that I would still be in prison." And so it is with us. We could be living in a free society, but if we are knotted up with hostility, anger, resentment, fear, or any of those emotions that prevent us from living our best lives, we are still in a prison of our own making. So we want to have freedom from fear, freedom from doubt, whether it's self-doubt or doubt in possibilities. Freedom from judgment, again, whether it's judgment of ourselves or others. When we live in that consciousness of judgment, fear, and doubt, there is no freedom of spirit that lives through us. We want to be free from hostility and resentment. Spend a day focused on being resentful towards someone and see whether your experience of that day is something you'd like to repeat or not. Probably not. Freedom from old wounds. Sometimes, especially if in childhood, when we're hurt deeply, we can carry wounds for a long, long time. And those wounds can literally stand in the way of our being healthy, our being happy, our opening to possibilities. And it's not just childhood wounds, wounds that come from adult trauma, wounds of war, wounds of natural disasters. It's not always easy to release those old wounds. Oftentimes, a professional counselor or therapist or even a doctor can be helpful. But whatever it is, it's worth releasing those wounds, because the life of joy and possibilities that they block is a big loss. We want to be free from limiting beliefs, all those times that we tell ourselves, I won't be able to, or that would never be possible, or I could never do that. Never knowing, because if we tried, you never know. Never know. Amazing things happen. And I've seen this happen in my own life and in other people's lives where the beginning consciousness is no way, absolutely not possible. And then surrendering to the possibility, and it's amazing what comes forward. We want to be free from the opinions of others. Wayne Dyer, a beloved spiritual teacher among Unity people, used to say to be free from the good opinion of others. And we all know that feeling when we think someone is judging us or someone thinks that we're not good enough, how much that can hurt and how much that can take over our experience of a day. So freedom, that inner freedom, is that freedom from all of those ways of being present that hurt us and hold us down. And the list that I gave is just a partial list. We could spend all day talking about the things, those inner experiences, attitudes, beliefs, feelings that we harbor that hold us back, keep us from being free. That inner freedom is not just freedom from, but it's a freedom to do something or be something. It's freedom to know truth, truth with a capital T. It's that freedom to know who we are. It's that freedom to know what God is in our lives. It's that freedom to know what is possible. It is freedom to speak our truth, to have the courage to speak our truth, to have the wisdom to speak our truth, the clarity. It's the freedom to live our truth. When we hold something within with clarity and we know it and we have faith in it, it gives us the freedom to live our truth. It's the freedom to love, to open our hearts, and to give and to receive love, which makes all the difference in the quality of life that we have. It's the freedom to learn and to grow, to create, to evolve. It's the freedom to live the life that we are called to live. You know those inner callings that desire to be something, to do something, to experience something? That inner freedom gives us the ability to pursue that, to reach for it, to live that. And that's huge. Jack Kornfield tells a story. Jack Kornfield is a Buddhist teacher, a Western Buddhist teacher. He tells a story of a stone cutting, I don't know if they're called plants or quarries or whatever, but these people were working in these areas and they were taking large rocks and chiseling them to make a form or a shape so that these rocks can be used later on. And a man was walking through this area and he came to one man who was sitting there chiseling on a large rock. And he asked him what he's doing. He goes, I spend my whole day just chiseling on these rocks. Every day, same thing, humdrum, ho-ho. And so they part, and the man walking through walks up to a second man, and he says, what are you doing? He goes, well, I chisel these large rocks to form a shape so they can be used later on. And he goes, and it's a decent living. It provides for my family. It allows my children to go to school. It puts food on the table. It buys me a new Corolla. And so the man walked on. He could see that the man chiseling there was satisfied with his work. He appreciated the compensation that he got. And he got to a third man and he said, "What are you doing?" And the man looked up beaming. He said, "I am building a cathedral." He goes, "It's going to take 1,000 years maybe, but all of these stones that I'm making are going to be part of the wall of this magnificent cathedral. Isn't it exciting?" Can you feel the difference? That last man was doing that which he was called to do, that which filled him with meaning and with joy. And when we're free from those fears and doubts and limitations and beliefs, we are free to live the life we are called to live. That's what that freedom is, that inner freedom. Jack Kornfield said, and this is not an exact quote, but he was talking about a teaching of the Buddha. And according to Jack Kornfield, the Buddha taught that we are to remember who we are. That the Buddha said, remember who you are. You can be free. Freedom is your birthright. And then once you know this freedom, then live in this world with beauty. So it's not just to be free of the suffering. We've all probably heard about that Buddhism teaches us how to be free of the suffering. But it's to take it beyond that, to take that inner freedom and to live that life of beauty, to live that life of passion that that third man who was chiseling rocks was doing. In our own scriptures, we have a passage that says the truth will set you free. To know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's in the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verse 32. It's the same teaching, different words, different style, that this truth that we know about who we are and what God is in our lives sets us free from all those worries, those fears, those doubts. And it frees us to be all we can be, to live that life that we are called to live. And in our own tradition and unity, we have that truth manifested so powerfully, so wonderfully by Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founder. She had a moment of knowing the truth. She was sitting in a lecture and all of a sudden there was this enlightenment experience, and in that experience she realized, I am a child of God and I do not inherit illness. And in that knowing, all of those fears and doubts and limiting beliefs and the acceptance of disease as her way of life just fell away. She became free from all of those things and free to live a different life. And out of this different life that she created, out of this health that she claimed, the unity movement was born. One of the very first authors in the unity movement, the woman that is credited with writing the first unity book, she wrote a book called Lessons in Truth. Her name is Dr. Emily Cady. Her very first chapter, the very first paragraphs in that book are about liberty. And the question she poses is, are you going to live a life of freedom, or are you going to live a life of bondage? And she goes on to talk about those things that we're talking about now, that there are things that can hold us back and keep us from knowing the freedom that is truly ours, the freedom that is our birthright. In that book, in Lessons in Truth, she writes, every man believes himself to be in bondage to the flesh and to the things of the flesh. And that was the language of the time, but today we might say every person believes themselves to be bound to the limitations of this material world, to the limitations that we hold in our race consciousness. Emily Cady went on to say all of the suffering we create for ourselves is a result of this belief. For our freedom is of God. Our freedom is of the Spirit that lives within us. And just like the freedom that we are blessed with in our country, it is not on automatic pilot. Just because it's our birthright doesn't make it an automatic pilot. Myrtle Fillmore developed a practice of meditation and prayer and teaching others that sustained that freedom that she found. She gifted others with that freedom, and by doing that, she kept that freedom she discovered. When we release that bondage to material things and release the suffering that goes with it and embrace the beauty of life, the way the Buddha taught, the way Emily Cady is teaching, it's not a one-time deal and then it's ours for forever. We need to keep doing the work, whether it's a spiritual work, a work of prayer, meditation, or maybe sharing with others, or living that life that might inspire others to do the same, but is not a ticket to sit back and saying, okay, I'm done. I am now free. We have to reclaim that freedom every day, whether it's our internal freedom or the freedom of this beautiful country that we're blessed with. Emily Cady also wrote that each man must sooner or later learn to stand alone with his God. Nothing else avails. As long as we keep looking for those external things to be the source of our freedom, it's not going to last. It is standing before our God. Whatever name we might use for our God, whatever understanding we might have of God, but it is standing alone before our God and knowing that this is where my freedom comes from. Freedom is my birthright because I am a child of God. I am an expression of the divine. Emily Cady continues to say nothing else other than this, other than standing alone before your God, will make you master of your own destiny. So we have our work cut out for us. It's not an easy discipline to maintain. It's not an easy commitment to continuously work for the freedom of our country. It's not an easy spiritual work to hold on to the freedom that is ours, but whatever we may be called to do, it is an important work, a very, very important work. Again, Jack Kornfield wrote, "Your heart and spirit can be free and joyful no matter what the circumstances of your life." So that's the deal. If we do this work, if we make this commitment, if we surrender to the truth that God is the source of our freedom, if we surrender to the truth that the freedom of our country is due to the consent of the governed, and we step up and we act as such, then we are gifted with both this inner and outer freedom. Rumi, one of my favorite poets, had a couple things to say about this. He said, "You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life?" Because when we're not free, we feel pushed around and we end up feeling like we're crawling through our lives instead of living with the passion of that stonecutter who was building a cathedral. And the other quote of Rumi's that I really like is he says, "You have escaped the cage. Your wings are stretched out. Now fly." And so it is.
I find my greatest strength when I become still and enter the silence of my deepest being. I find my greatest strength when I become still and enter the silence of my deepest being. I find my greatest strength when I become still and enter the silence of my deepest being.
So now we go deeper into our time of meditation. I invite you to sit comfortably, to release any physical tension or stress that you might be carrying. And then allow your breath to come easily and effortlessly. And for a little while, simply notice the movement of your breath. Notice how your breath feels when you breathe in and when you breathe out. Notice how each breath takes you deeper within, deep into that secret place, that sacred place within you, where you experience the presence of God. The presence of the divine. Or some might say where you experience your own Buddha nature. And so in this meditation, I invite you to reflect, to contemplate on words of great teachers. And the Buddha taught to remember who you are, that you are free. Freedom is your birthright. And Jesus said, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And so you claim your freedom now. And you live in this world with beauty. You hold all of these truths in your heart in the silence. I am a child of God, and I am free. Holding those affirmations in your heart, allow yourself to gently and easily bring your attention back to this time and place, to this moment. Take a gentle, easy breath. If your eyes are closed, please open your eyes and then join me in affirming, I am free. And so it is.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Now we walk with each other in perfect harmony. Now peace begins with me. Yes, this is the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Now there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins with me.
And now, please join me in the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. We are one holy family. We celebrate our oneness and honor our diversity.
And so as we bring this spiritual gathering to a close, please join with me in our closing affirmation. And then I invite you to hold this affirmation in your mind and in your heart throughout the week. And so we say together, I am free. Once more, I am free. And so it is.
Everybody got a little something only you can bring. It's impossible to put it all together. Need every piece to make it complete, yeah. Every note to make a symphony. All the voices singing harmony. All the colors of the rainbow shining. Everyone, everyone. Say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes to a world with a little more love. Little more love, oh yeah. Never feel you're insignificant, like a tiny little grain of sand. What you do, what you say makes a difference. Go ahead and reach out your hand. Open a door, say hello. A stranger today, you might get to know 'em. Little love just keeps on growing. Change your life without even knowing. Say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes. It takes everyone, everyone, everyone to make a world with a little more love. Little more love. Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter where you come from, gender or race, spiritual beliefs or orientation. Everyone has got the same motivation. Love is love, the same situation. Give love and help one another. In this world, there's only each other.